Hey guys, I hope everyone's doing well so far and staying safe out there. So today for the first video of the series, I want to cover mainly hip cars. So I'll do a little kind of overview of cars in general, and then we'll dive into the hip car, things to look out for, and maybe a couple different ways to think of it that I might not have fully expressed yet. So again, cars, these controlled articular rotations, they're not just random arm or hip circles. They're not passive, so they're not me moving your hip through its full range of motion. It's you actively showing your brain and your nervous system how much can I really move? Where is the end range in all these different directions? So it's important to understand the difference. If I just move your hip through that range of motion, your nervous system doesn't really care. It doesn't really learn anything from it because you didn't tell it. There was no active input, it was just me moving you. So with these active ranges of motion, it trusts the input that you give it. So it kind of goes, okay, they told me where the end range is and where I can feel comfortable. So an important kind of idea to realize with this now, if you're going to actively tell your brain where the end range is, we want to make sure this car actually hits kind of all possible end ranges. So even though we know that the hip's a ball and socket joint, we also know that it's an asymmetric joint. So because of that, it's going to require kind of a specific sequence of movements, rotations to basically show the widest range of motion possible. So I'll get into that in a minute, but first I want to show you kind of maybe how to approach this and a couple different ways to think of it. So one way that I think of the hip cars specifically is if you imagine your femur as basically a laser pointer, the hip is kind of the base of it, but the knee is connected pretty directly to that. So where the hip goes, the knee will go. So if you can envision that laser coming out of your knee, you're really just trying to create the biggest possible outline. So the more you can move the hip, the more that laser is going to basically kind of map out your end range of motion. So with respect to that, when we go in this specific sequence, it's giving us kind of the widest perimeter possible for this laser outline. So that's one idea. The next idea I want to talk about a little bit is this idea of when to let go and when to activate. So a specific example, it's really simple. When you run out of room in abduction, so abduction is away from the body. When you run out of room this way and you're currently in external rotation, it's really easy to get kind of lazy and just fall into internal rotation. What I want you to focus more on is the reason I go to internal rotation is because I'm out of room on my external rotation. So instead of just giving up on it and falling in, I realize I'm out of room in external rotation, I'm immediately going to start pulling into internal rotation. Okay? So learning how to kind of slowly let go while at the same time activating in the opposite direction. That's going to create kind of the widest range possible. So I'll go through all these examples throughout the car. So first phase, we go into flexion and adduction, so towards the midline. So now I ran out of room into adduction, so what's my next step? I find more room by letting go of adduction and creating external rotation. Same thing now, I've run out of room, I'm going to let go of abduction a little bit, let go of external rotation, and activate internal rotation. Same thing, when I run out of room this way, I fully let go of abduction, let my leg come in, and activate extension. So from the side, I let go of my external rotation, activate internal. When I run out of abduction, I let my leg come in and I activate extension. Same is going to be true for the opposite. Start into extension. When that's out of room, I let go of extension and create abduction. Create external, back to the start. So from the front, I'm at the finish. I'm going to let go of extension, create abduction, let go of internal rotation and create external rotation, back to adduction across my body and down. So now what I want you to do is work through a couple of those reps, appreciate kind of this letting go and activating trade-off. And then I want you to try a couple reps where you actually do the sequence incorrectly. So if I'm working on external rotation to internal, right now my laser's pointed this way. If I don't let go of external rotation, this is the farthest I can move. If I go into internal rotation, all of a sudden that circle, that perimeter gets a little bit bigger. So by not following the sequence, we're really cutting off ranges of motion where we can create more movement if we follow this specific sequence. So try a few good reps out. You're probably going to get tired really quickly, so maybe just one or two at a time, and then play around with some of the incorrect patterns a little bit. Really kind of learn to appreciate where you can find good range of motion. So that's it for today. I'll come back tomorrow with a couple things to build off that, and we'll go from there. Thanks a lot.